Okay, so I'd like to talk to you tonight, it's the first message back in the new year, about establishing true community. Now, we have heard frequently from different speakers. I know Bob Nichols did a message on Community 2.0. Don't you remember that? That was on a Wednesday night, I think it was. And over the last 9 years, we've started to embark on this journey to understanding what does true community look like. Because we've understood that the whole general kind of Christianity circuit often shows, and particularly the whole church thing shows, is that it has to look a certain way, it has to feel a certain way, it has to taste a certain way. The whole thing has got to be parceled in a certain way. And we've realized, because of our experiences, that actually that was not what the intention was at all. It was built to be a center for the broken, for the damaged, for the bruised, ultimately to find out who you are because of what Christ has done. That is what we are here for, yeah? Some people, through their whole lives, will never fully grasp it. May never fix their brokenness, may never completely figure out the stuff. But that doesn't change why we are here. We are here to facilitate everybody, no matter what walk you are on your journey to faith, to understanding who you are because of what Christ has done. And if there's any message that you hear from this tonight, is you are loved, you are accepted, you are forgiven, it is finished, there is nothing else for you to achieve, for you to do. It was done at the cross on Calvary, the blood was shed, and that has once and for all covered you of any shame, any guilt, any conflict that you experience because of that one sacrifice. And if you don't hear anything else tonight, live in the reality of the fact that love wins. Love has won. Yeah? That's the sound of this house. Love wins. All is grace. Yeah? But unfortunately, I do have more. So I'm going to say it anyway. All right. Okay. I want to start with this. I have never, ever in my life been more convinced of this fact, that when God looks down upon the Rock of York, his blood moves with excitement. I'm going to say it again. I have never, ever in my life been more convinced that God looks upon this community of people and this church and gets excited. You could say, you don't know that. No, I think I do. I think I do. In here, Dad often says, Dad, whatever. He often says, do you ever hear God, in an audible voice? And he says, no, I hear him much louder than that. This thing that's been in my heart is God gets excited when he looks at this community of people. Isn't that awesome? And the reason why is because of this. We are not trying to hide anything, brush anything under the rugs, and kind of tiptoe along as if don't expose this, don't expose that. We are willing to embrace every single human being for where they are at. And if you look at the walk of Jesus and how he did things, that was exactly what he came to do. It doesn't necessarily bring you in thousands of people, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. But what it does do is there is life that seeps out of these walls. And if we're ever going to touch the city of York, there has to be a sound. It doesn't take squillions of people. It takes a sound that has to resonate throughout the rest of the city. And I really believe that that is where we are at. Now, how many of you, if you could, listen to me now, past, present, or future, if you had an eraser pen, would get rid of anything that had happened in the past that had harmed you and made you feel sad, or also erase anything that you knew was going to happen to you in the future? Put your hand up if you had that chance. Be honest. Be honest. This is not a trick question. Thank you. I appreciate your honesty, right? I would too, to some degree. The reason why we do that is because we believe that the negativity and the suffering and various things like that either make our life worse, because again we live in this world of good, bad, if we only realize that those very things that you are trying to erase from your past and the very things that you're trying to erase from your future, even though that you're not there yet, are the very things that are going to make you, that are going to build you, that are going to create you. But yet, because of our natural finite mind, we process and see things that we can just not believe that can ever make us into anything. And isn't that true? I mean, there's things that people face in this world, I mean, you watch, and you just think, how on earth can you be okay with that happening? How? And I think, even like when you see these little kids that have been shot to death in schools, how can those parents believe that that is going to make them as a human being? Think about it. It's pretty huge, isn't it? But we have to believe that outside of the finite world, there is something else going on that is supporting us, that is making us grow, that is building us. And ultimately, if we're not connected to that, we're going to see things with a very earthly view that negative things have got to be got rid of. But I'm telling you, they don't. As hard as those things may be, some people have harder things than others, yeah? But the fact is, they don't need to be got rid of, and I'm going to explain tonight. Right, if you wouldn't mind, I didn't tell you at the back, could you put up Romans 5, verse 2 in the Amplified, please? Now, trying to eliminate pain and suffering might give you a peaceful existence. It might. I would question what that peace is and whether it's really a peace or whether it's just what you're creating that's making you feel better. I've often said that when we're the most in control, we believe that God's there, when actually he probably isn't at all. It's just that we're being God. That makes sense. So I would strongly challenge whether it's a genuine peace, but how does eliminating these things, if we get rid of these things, we're not going to grow as a human being. So let me just read this to you to explain my preach tonight. So we've got, through him also we have our access, entrance, introduction, by faith into this grace, state of God's favor in which we firmly and safely stand. And let us rejoice and exult in our hope of experiencing and enjoying the glory of God. Next bit, please. Next verse? Okay. Through him also we have have I read that bit? Sorry. Moreover, let us also be full of joy now. Let us exult and triumph in our troubles and rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that pressure and affliction and hardship produce patient, unswerving endurance. And endurance develops maturity of character, which is approved faith and tried integrity. And character of this sort produces the habit of, I love that, the habit of joyful and confident hope of eternal salvation. Such hope never disappoints or deludes or shames us, for God's love has been poured out in our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. Make sense? If I read that up there, Paul seems to be suggesting that hardships and suffering are what make a person. Is that right? He is, isn't he? And he's not saying that it makes it nice, but he's saying that it's what develops character and maturity in people. Now, that can be quite tough because I know that there's people in here who have got some horrible situations going on in their lives. I face them in my life. But yet at the same time, the sooner we start to see things through the eyes of hope rather than despair, we start to realize that those very things are the things that will make us into the person that we're supposed to be. Let that be a message to you tonight for all you who are facing pain and suffering. This is the start of you. It's the start of you, not the end. This is the beginning, all right? Let me move on then. Okay. So, reaching maturity, it doesn't come cheap. Okay? Like I've said before, you can ignore things all you want. It will give you a certain type of peace. But if you want this type of maturity, where ultimately, like it says, you enter and experience the glory of God, unfortunately, that does not come cheap. Now, if you're not interested in that, there is another option. Do you want me to tell you? I'll tell you. Right. If you aren't interested in growing through the sufferings and through the pain, which some people just cannot and do not want to face that reality, there's a thing called pseudo-community seekers. Pseudo-community seekers. Let me read this to you. Pseudo-community can be formed very easily and very cheaply. Just avoid all disagreement. Don't discuss your true feelings or the truth about your life. It says in all situations that conflict avoidance is the key to a successful community. So if you do challenge someone, make it generic so the person doesn't take it personally. Don't do anything to offend anyone. Just keep the peace. Oh, I'm not sure if I like that idea. On one side, I kind of do, because there's a part of it that is easy, that you just think, oh, thank goodness, no one talks about anything that's heavy and everyone just gets on with life. But there's also, and let me just say this, an immaturity about that. And the church hasn't helped because it said, under no circumstance to anybody express their issues, we have to look like we've got it together. They couldn't be further from the truth. That is not the truth at all. So there's something very inviting about this life. However, it's also, let me say this, very dull. Living in this stage suppresses all of the obscurities and quirkinesses of the human soul that make life so interesting. Remember, God didn't create us to be angelic. Now, unfortunately, with pseudo-community, actually comes a very angelic image, which can appear very nice. But at the same time, anything that doesn't, what word can I use? Anything that doesn't seep human, I don't think it's what God intended. He's looking for that humanity because that is where he fits. God created humans, not angels. Is this making sense? I'm saying this to encourage you as a house, right? Now, I don't believe The Rock is a pseudo-community at all. There may be elements and people who find that pseudo-community is helpful because it makes them feel safe. But I don't believe that we are that. And that can actually cause us a little bit of a problem because a lot of people who are looking for a safe community, particularly within the church, are looking for somewhere that everything seems to be all right because it's easy. Fortunately, if you're looking for a church that's easy, I don't think this, and don't hurt me, is the place for you. I don't. And that's hard to say because everybody in every walk of life is welcome here. But I'm telling you, if you are looking for a certain type of community, you cannot find pseudo-community here. You can, because it's not what we are. Yeah? But we all have to be careful that although that's not what we want here, that each one of us isn't looking for those quick fixes to say, oh, I just want everything to be okay. No, we embrace suffering, hardships, and differences and difficulties on our journey. Are you with me? Yes. Right, good. Right, where are we? Often, we like pseudo-community, hear me on this, because it's more of our view that people seem to conform to certain patterns and behaviors, almost like they're cloned. So everybody's the same. There's something about when everybody's the same that you feel safe, don't you? You find that you often connect to people who are very like you in your circle of friends, and there's a reason for that. It's because there's no kind of, okay, there's sometimes friction, but you don't get that same sort of friction as when you're around somebody that thinks very different to you. And often what people look for in a community is people who are all the same and almost cloned, like robots to some degree, right? However, the problem is with that is although you've got that connection with the person, you're never really dealing with each other in truth because neither of you really know what each other's feeling because a lot of it is usually a type of pretense, yeah? So people hide their flaws because they feel like they can't show them by presenting a false self that will appear acceptable. Now, here's the biggest issue of pseudo-community. It squashes and crushes human individuality. It crushes it. The church is the biggest culprit for crushing human individuality. It completely shatters it because it's scared to allow differences and, I can't think of the word, you know what I'm saying, like different types of people, different taboos, to all come into one place and say, right, we are here, how are we going to deal or walk on this journey? That's the exciting part. See, everybody in here has something that another person does that will not think is normal. So, for instance, I'm going to be honest now. Let's just take you for Jenny. You're different to me in some areas, right? That makes you not normal, because I must be right. Jenny comes back and says, hang on a sec, you're by far nowhere near normal. You're a Chapman for one thing. Right. Yeah, but you hear where I'm coming from? The fact is, not one of you in here is normal. Not one of you. And that's what makes it so exciting. Yeah, that's why we're here. No one is normal. However, some of you will be cringing now thinking, normality, oh Lord, please bring back a standard for normality. You can't have it. You can in pseudo-community. You can create it. You can set boundaries. You can set rules. You can set, this is what we want things to look like. But tell me how that allows you to be you, whatever that looks like. It doesn't, yeah? So I'll just develop this a little bit more now. The Pharisees and the teachers of the law hated the fact that Jesus wasn't afraid of human individuality, even though some of the issues were quite severe, like the woman caught in the act of adultery, things that in their day was like the height of like just no-go areas, all right? Jesus said, give me your hand, I forgive you sin no more. And the rest of the people are saying, hang on a sec, but she's not normal. You need to change her to be like us before you let her go. No, he said, I accept your human failure, I accept your individuality. I may not agree with it, but that's not the point. You are loved, accepted, forgiven. Now go, walk the journey. Make sense? Now, the moment you encourage people to allow their failures, disappointments, sufferings to be brought to the surface and spoken out, now here's the next stage when you move from pseudo-community, and this is where we have been as a house, is chaos. You can laugh, it's fine. It's chaos. Another term that Anthers use is, messy church. Okay? There is no greater chaos than what Jesus caused for the Pharisees. No greater chaos. All of the niceties of the law-abiding churchgoers were being shattered by a man who says this: the church is not exclusive, it is inclusive, and I will die to make sure that that happens. There you go. This is where things started to shift, because I honestly think that's why Jesus came. It was like, this whole pseudo-community thing has got to stop, because this is not the heart of Abba. This is not the heart of Abba. But what happens is, and to shatter that, something kind of goes a bit crazy, and chaos starts to happen. The Pharisees hated the fact that Jesus allowed people to be open and honest about who they were and where they were at, because it challenged the peace of the crowd. It challenged the peace of the crowd. We're not supposed to be part of the crowd. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't mean we can't connect with everybody and everything, because that's our job. When I say the crowd, I'm in the general belief that everything has to look and be the same. That is not what we are called to be as a house. We're called to be, running the race marked out for us and ice breaking. That's us with a nose of the ship. Yeah? So because of Jesus, and because he was willing to shake things up and allow human individuality to speak, he created chaos. The problem with the majority of the church community nowadays, it has forgotten the Jesus of the Bible. It's forgotten it. He says it, I didn't come to bring peace but a sword. He was the ultimate activist for the human soul, to allow it to breathe, to allow it to speak. Chaos is a must-have if true community is ever going to be built. But this is the problem. When people walk into a church and see chaos, now when I say chaos, I don't mean like people like throwing chairs across the room and like having like food fights and that. Although I'm sure in Lifezone that occurs sometimes. Or Urban Rev maybe. What I mean by that is a sense that people are people, if that makes sense. People are real. If you've not experienced that before, you would look at this and believe, oh no, this isn't going anywhere. No, God's not here. I don't feel God's presence. Let me tell you, I have never ever been more convinced in my life that God looks down upon the rock and he gets excitement in his veins. You might hear that a lot tonight. Because I believe it. And you know why? Because he looks down and he sees chaos, messy church. And that to him says, okay, listen, you might not be where you should be yet, but there is a vitality about you and a hope because you are willing to embrace that chaos. Hear me? I hope this is I know I'm being a bit firm, but I hope it's like speaking to you, because I really believe that this is the foundation of this house, and I believe we have to set it again to know where we are as a people. Now, another reason why people don't like a messy church or a chaos church is because of this. It feels insecure, feels uncreative, and it feels unconstructive. Do you all agree that you get that feeling when there's chaos? So, tell yourself, when you hear those words, what does your mind say? If someone was to say to you, insecure, uncreative, and unconstructive, they are negative words, aren't they? They are. So if you go into a place that you believe should be all fun and games and happy clappy, and you experience those three words, anybody in their right mind is going to say, this doesn't fit the pattern, sinking ship, I'm leaving. Right? When the words that should be coming into your head is, God looks down on the Rock of York and he has excitement in his veins. He does. It's amazing. Now, here is where the problem comes. Chaos cannot be dealt with, this is going to freak some of you out, by organization and structure. Oh, Lord, help me. Does anybody here like to be organized? Does anybody here feel safe with structure? Oh, thank goodness. Let's just go back to pseudo community then. Deal. And did you get that? None of this chaos lark. Yeah? Seriously, though, it's true, isn't it? Oh. Organization and structure shatter community. Now, do we need an element of structure to house, we've said this before, to house culture? Yes, we do. But whatever organization and structure are the dominant force, community will never be birthed. Now, let me throw this one in here. If a leader who wants to develop true community cannot be a dictator and an authoritarian person. Now, for someone who needs structure and organization, will look for someone who actually controls, because they want everything to be directed, to be guided, everything to be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in 10 years we will be here. Again, if you want that from the Rock, we cannot give it to you because that crushes community. I think Anth does an incredible job. I honestly, and I think Chris does an incredible job. And you know why? It's because they are willing to allow human individuality to speak. And it does not scare them. It does not scare them. Neither should it scare you. Because you know what? If it scares you, then you need to be scared of you because you are one of those people. And isn't it wonderful that all of us are the same in the respects that we all have stuff? And because Anth and Chris are so wonderful and so gracious and so loving, and bearing in mind, I'm not speaking as them as my parents now, I'm speaking as them as my leaders, that because of the journey that they have walked, they are freeing people to find out who Jesus is and find out what his love means. Not because they're trying to manipulate and dictate. They're trying to give people freedom and space to walk that journey. But with that comes a messiness. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay, because you know what? I want it to be messy because I want to be here. And if it's not messy, I can't be here. And I want this to be my home. You with me? Making sense? Right. So, how do you deal with chaos? We could say, let's introduce more organization, let's introduce more structure, and like I just said, can't do that. It's this. Are you ready? Emptiness. Emptiness. How fab that as a church, chaos and emptiness seem to be the driving words. Quite strange, isn't it? This means removing the barriers of feelings, prejudices, assumptions, judgments, motives, preconceived ideas. You empty yourself of all of those things. It also means getting rid of the thought process that there is only one and right way to do things. When we truly empty ourselves instead of trying to organize things, we begin to share others' issues, listen to this, as if they were our own. It's amazing. We begin to share other people's issues as if they were our own. That is chaos and emptiness. But that sounds quite nice, doesn't it? So I've taken two words that sound pretty opposite to what anybody in their right mind as a person would want to experience. And I've said to you, but these very things are where, might I say, the glory of God lies. That's where it lies. It's good news. It's good news. When we truly empty ourselves, instead of trying to organize things, we begin to share others' issues without any judgment or condemnation. It allows you to extend yourself to someone and understand them as they are, not as they should be. Right? It is a process of sacrifice. Jesus allowed himself to be emptied. But what sacrifice did he pay? It was pretty massive. Why? He brought chaos because he wanted human individuality to be free, freely exposed, allow people to speak, allow the soul to breathe. And then in that, he emptied himself. Bearing in mind now, listen here, Jesus was all God. He was flawless and perfect, yet human. And if there isn't any greater manifestation of emptying than the fact that a spear was rammed up into his side and everything seeped out of his body, even though he was all God, what is that but emptying of oneself? Jesus could have slammed every single person he came into contact with, and yet what did he do? He said, I know every skeleton in your closet. I know every demon. I know every flaw. I know every broken relationship. I know everybody you've slept with. I know every habit and destructive behavior that you have had. But here's my hand. Let grace speak. Let grace speak. Let love win. Because you'll never be as you should be, but I love you in spite of. Did you know that I loved you? Did you know that I loved you, even though your individuality spoke? Is this making sense? This is a hope message. It's exciting. Now, this is where the scripture comes back in, and I'm nearly done. You cannot walk this process to true community without a hope, and it says it at the end, without a hope that does not disappoint, does not delude, and does not shame. See, without that hope, chaos and emptiness, which ultimately pushes into this wholeness of community and what community is, not trying to fix, not trying to convert, not trying to change, but allowing people to enter this place where the soul can speak. The only way that that can happen is through hope. Because the only other option is despair. The only other option is fear. Hope has to be at the center. If Jesus had not had a hope in his Abba, I don't think he could have done it. Because although he was all God, he came down as human, and his Father was telling him to go to empty himself so much that he would end up on a cross. How do you get there without hope? He'd never experienced death. His Father saying, you'll die, and on the third day you'll rise again. How do you get through that without hope? Hope is the only way. Right. Jesus believed, because of hope, that his Abba would restore all things to himself and it would allow the human soul to breathe again. See, humanity is something to be celebrated, not despaired. Your humanity is something to be celebrated. Now, remember, out of this ministry comes so many different strands, because I could say, yeah, but that's not beneficial. I know, and that's a whole different area. But you've got to remember that all this stuff bleeds into one another, and with something, it's paradoxical. But I want you to hear my heart on this, that although the choices that we make might not be beneficial, it still doesn't mean that we can't celebrate. Still doesn't mean we can't celebrate. Because if we're living in hope, whether what we see makes us feel comfortable or makes us feel like everything's okay or not, hope speaks louder than what our humanity says is going on. Because hope submits to a higher power, a higher law that says, in this situation, the glory of God can be revealed. Make sense? Good, all right. Okay, hope allows you, listen to this, hope allows you to embrace both the joy when it's light and the sadness when it's dark. It allows you to laugh and cry. It allows you to hug and fight. That's what hope does. The true essence of community is where people are full of hope. You know why? Because you laugh and you cry. You fight and you hug. What is wonderful about it is where hope exists, tension can also exist. What's great, when you experience joy, now hear me on this, the pain is usually worse in true community than it is back in pseudo-community. But so is the joy. Because it's only when you get to true community that the glory of God can be lived in. Back in pseudo-community, it doesn't exist there. Because God can only enter your world where the truth of your humanity comes out. And that's where he resides. Is this giving you some hope tonight? I have never, ever been more convinced in my life that God looks down at the rock and excitement runs through his veins. Is it exciting you? Because it's exciting me. Right. Most of the time it feels like we live in the chaos, emptiness stages. But the more we allow hope to dwell within us, the more we will begin to experience the peace that comes. When I say peace, I mean peace. That comes with the wholeness of true community. Listen to this. It is in this wholeness that we see people soften, change, become healed, and converted. Did you hear that? I didn't say you slam people and you pull it out of them and you try and get them to conform to a pattern that makes everyone feel okay. I said it's when you allow hope to dwell within you and true community then develops, that is where then people have the revelation that they can soften, they can change, they can become, they can be healed, and they can be converted. But you see, a lot of the time the church has got it the wrong way round. What it's done is try and suppress everything, and yet actually in the long run it's made everything worse. Because truth is not a scary thing. You know why? Because Jesus was the truth. He said, I am the truth, the way and the life. No one can come to the Father except through me. So he didn't think truth was a bad thing. He said, live in it. Love it. True community does not feel comfortable and is often more painful, but there is a joy that comes with it that is more intense than you will have ever experienced. When you are committed to hanging in there as a group of people, because this is about us as a group as well, facing the chaos of individuality, the emptying of ourselves, and the tension of light and darkness, you live in the true, revealed glory of God. Listen to me now. The weight, the significance, the power, the vastness, the width, the length, the omnipotence, and the intensity of the manifestation of the goodness of God. Listen to me, Rock Church. I have never been more convinced in my life that God looks down on this place and he has excitement running through his veins. Okay, I'm going to read this again. When you experience true community, you live in the true glory of God. The weight, the significance, the power, the vastness, the width, the length, the omnipotence, and the intensity of the manifestation of the goodness of God. Rock Church, I have never in my life been more convinced that when God looks down on this place, he gets excitement running through his veins. Woo! Thank you. I'm serious. I am serious. Some of you could say, you can't say that. Yes, I can, because I'm looking at all of you and I think you're awesome. Not because you're trying to hide anything, but because you're living life, you're facing stuff, you're all broken, and that's a healthy place to be. You're a healthy bunch of people. Real healthy. And that's an exciting thing, because everything you were taught about hiding, about sitting under and conforming to a certain set of rules, we're not there anymore. It's about living in the manifested goodness of God. Now I'm telling you, and I've said this before, we love because he first loved us. Therefore, when you allow people's stuff to come to the surface and they feel safe, when then you talk to them about the love of God, they can then start to love themselves. That's when they start to love themselves. I tell you, and I'll be very honest about myself now, I still am not quite sure if I fully experienced the total love of God. I know that because I don't always love myself. And I can often be very down on myself. I can reject myself. I can be very hard on myself. There are areas where that fits to grow and things where you've got to, challenge yourself. I'm not saying that there's not a place for that. Rather than just seeing the chaos and the emptiness and thinking, actually, I'm on the verge here of experiencing the manifestation of the glory of God, the weight and the significance and the power. That's where it lies. That is where it lies. Is that okay? Okay. True community is not conflict avoiding, it's conflict resolving. And that conflict is only resolved by living within a hope that we have a source that is bigger than ourselves, that can handle you. God can handle you. You do not faze him one little bit. Let me finish with this. All is grace, love wins. All is grace, love wins. You can't get better than that, can you? All is grace, love wins. I'm going to say it one more time. Rock Church. I have never been more convinced in my life that God looks down on this house and he has excitement running through his veins. You know why? Because you guys have been willing to be the icebreakers. You have been the front of the ship. You have been willing to sacrifice pseudo-community, which we all think feels so incredibly safe and so great, for a chaos and an emptiness that makes us real, makes us authentic, makes us truthful, and ultimately the glory of God will seep out of these walls and hit the city like a ton of bricks. Starts here. Starts with you. Starts with here. Yeah, the heartbeat of our lives. You are safe to be you, and in that you will experience a change, a love, and a grace that you have never ever felt in your life. And I'm telling you, if you walk that journey and not get freaked out by it, things just might start to look a little bit differently in your life. All the things that you might thought would never change, that scared you half silly thinking, this is my past, this is my stuff, this is my struggles. It's amazing when you actually enter the goodness of the glory of God, what that starts to do without you having to be a dictator, trying to change everything. The glory of God can fix everything. It heals, it comforts, it provides, it brings peace, it brings kindness, it brings love, it brings sacrifice. It's just so expansive of what it actually represents. And that's it. That's my message. I'm sorry if you felt I was a bit like... But I'll let you know. I've had a really, really difficult day today. I've had a very, very hard day. Every time I sat down to develop, I only just got back last night, and I knew that I had an idea, but I didn't have anything down. I'm thinking, oh, Lord, this is awful. Anyway, every time I would sit down to think of something, either the door would knock, or the phone would ring, or something of some sense of anxiety. And I mean anxiety would hit me like a ton of bricks. And by 4 o'clock this afternoon, I really was quite frightened. I was frightened because I'm thinking, is God trying to tell me that this is not the message, this is not the word, that it's not my right to speak it or whatever? And I thought, how about that God's saying, put your laptop down and just go and speak. Stop trying to figure it out and trying to get it all bullet pointed and just go and deliver what's in your heart. And sometimes we have to step out into the unknown, don't we? Jenny, you know what it's like, anybody who speaks. Sometimes you try and get it all together and you just think, oh, Lord, what is going through my head? But I want this to be the sound of this house. It's our first one back. And I want, when Anthony and Chris get back next week, for us to resound this glory of God that we've just spoken about. You never know, it might come in, there might be a bit of chaos one week. One week it might be that we've got an emptying where we have to allow people to talk about this stuff, or we release ourselves of all our prejudices and preconceived ideas. There might be some weeks we just come in and we're all on cloud nine and everything's just fab. Remember, it's all down to dynamics as well. But that's down to us. Yeah? That's down to us believing that it's okay. It's okay. You're loved. Before I finish, is there anybody in here tonight who would just like to stand if you feel that the whole chaos emptiness thing and what community represents sort of, I tell you what, let's all stand. Because I was just about to say, if there's anybody in here who wants to stand up who struggles with community, but that's unfair because I believe we all struggle with it. Yeah, so forgive me for that, forgive me. I want this house to be a house of great joy. Great joy. And I believe that I think we're nearly there. I do. I believe that this last 9 years of shifting from what we thought was right to this thing that is totally terrifying, but at the same time, there's such a vitality and a richness about it that makes me feel excited. It makes me feel excited. So, bow your heads, I'm just going to pray to finish off. Lord God, tonight, we are grateful for what you have given us as a house. Lord, we are grateful for our sufferings, for our disappointments, for our fears, for our failures, for our discomforts, for our addictions, for any problem that lies within our humanity, Lord Father, that has come out and expressed itself. Lord God, tonight we are grateful that we are walking through this valley, but we're not going to stop because we're going to walk through it. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. We don't stop, we walk through. Because your rod and your staff, they comfort us because we have a hope in something stronger than ourselves. Thank you, Lord God, tonight that you fought to allow humanity's soul to breathe again. That we no longer have to fake our lives, we no longer have to conform to a pattern of do's and don'ts. But Lord, you have allowed us to become who we are supposed to be in you because of your emptying on the cross, and that we can now experience true community, the weight, the significance, the omnipotence of your glory, which will shine through us. Lord, we take everything now in our lives, we accept the whole picture, good, bad, ugly, pretty, and offer it all to you with hope and say, God, whatever I have to walk, I will walk it because hope still stands and the glory of God will be revealed in my life. The glory of God will be revealed in your life. Kate Astwood, word for you, the glory of God will be revealed in your life, in the situation you are going through. It is not a problem, it is not negative, it is not bad, because it's where you are, and where you are is where the goodness of God will be revealed. Stop fighting and allow it to be, because I'm telling you, at the end of it, you will see the manifestation of the goodness of God. That's what, Kelly, where you are is where you need to be, because at the end of it, you will experience the manifestation of the glory of God in your life. You are here for a reason. You are here for such a time as this. And I am telling you that God is calling you to a greater purpose, to a higher order. Don't let the chaos and the emptiness freak you out, because I'm telling you, at the end of it, you will experience the authentic manifestation of the glory of the goodness of God. Jude. I feel God's telling me that you have walked a journey of fear, of neglect, of pain, of struggles, but God's now saying that all that stuff is making you you. It's making you you. Stop fighting it, stop trying to control it, stop trying to dictate the situation, and allow in this to let the glory of God be revealed in your life. Allow it to be revealed. Because you are brought for such a time as this, you're in this house for a reason. Everything that you face on your journey of life is not because God has created it, because life is life, but in it, if you allow the chaos and the emptiness to be there, I am telling you, at the end, you will experience the authentic goodness of God. You will. Just a few. Jenny Flintoft. The struggles and the pains that you face look wrong, look negative, look bad, look everything opposite to what you feel should be. But I am telling you now that you are in a place of chaos, You are in a place of emptying, but I am telling you, at the end of this process, you will no longer be living in a created reality that you believe is right, but you will be living in the manifestation and the authenticity of the glory, the weight, the significance, the power, the omnipotence of the expression of the glory of God. That's for you tonight, Jenny, I'm telling you. The glory of God. It's all about the manifested reality of the glory of God. And it starts in your issues. That's where it starts. Starts right there. I think I'm done. All right? Let it speak. I hope that's encouraged you. And I've gone on quite a long time. I'm really sorry. We were going to sing again, but I don't think we need to. I don't think we need to, because I believe that we need to end on the sound, the manifestation of the glory of God. Let me say this one thing one more time. I have never, ever, more so than now, this second, been more convinced of the fact that God looks down on this house and he has excitement running through his veins. I do. Let that speak. Let it be a reality in your life. Remember, don't get freaked out. If you face stuff this week, because I'm telling you, by tomorrow something will come up. People who I've probably spoke directly to, you'll be hit with a whole bunch of challenges on Monday. Oh, Lord, help us, right? But remember what I said. It doesn't mean that it's not going to be hard. Let me just add that. Just because we push into, live in the reality of the glory of God, it doesn't mean it's hard, because Jesus, when he was resurrected, that was the manifestation of the glory of God, but he still had to die. Sometimes a death has to occur. Yeah? But here's the difference. You die, we die with you. All right? Is that a good deal? Because I think I said earlier about that when you empty yourselves, you allow yourself to embrace one another's issues. So Jenny, if you're dying, I'm dying with you. Jude, if you're dying, I'm dying with you. I hope it would be the same for me. Yeah? Because that ultimately is what true community is. I'm telling you, 2013 is going to be a rocking year for this house. I believe it. I honestly believe it, but we have to refocus and re-challenge our heads to get out of the belief that everything has to look okay, because it doesn't. It doesn't have to look okay. Yeah? Be you, live in that, and allow God's truth, God's hope, God's glory to shine. And with that, I'm telling you, we can change the world. And even the words, I don't know. A bit sad to end, isn't it? Anyway, you are loved. Have a great week, and we will see you next Saturday.